Welcome to this video about the application of Primer Surfacer. In this video, we will see this dent, which has been repaired, prepped, and masked, which is now ready for Primer Surfacer. Primer Surfacer is a product that is used to level out minor imperfections in preparing a panel for top coat. Before Primer Surfacer is applied to the bare metal, all the bare metal areas must be coated with something to help with corrosion protection and adhesion, such as epoxy primer as seen here. Or in the case of our paint line, we also have the option of using these pre-treatment wipes, which act very similarly to an etch primer, also providing excellent corrosion protection resistance as well as adhesion. These wipes are used by applying the wipe to the bare metal areas, wiping in a crosshatch pattern which wets out the panel. The panel should remain wet for about a minute and then it will dry, and once the panel is dry, then the particular panel has been treated and is then ready for the application of the Primer Surfacer. In our case, we are going to be using our Sikkens Color Build Plus 250 Primer Surfacer, and always make sure that no matter what product you use, you're always following the technical data sheet, which tells you about the mixing, application, panel preparation, and safety requirements for that product. This is a urethane primer surfacer, which is activated by an isocyanate hardener. Isocyanates are very hard on your health and attracted to moisture. So wearing appropriate PPE is necessary, which includes a fresh air hood, full paint suit, and gloves, making sure that there's no exposed skin. I've mixed the primer and set up the paint gun. I'm spraying a spray out card here, which is used for color matching. You'll notice that my primer is actually red. Quite often vehicles are actually primed in gray. And one thing to consider with color matching is the color of your undercoat, such as your primers. Most colors typically do cover well with gray, but some colors, such as the red I'm spraying, will be very hard to cover correctly and match correctly with a gray undercoat. So it may be necessary to use the correct shade of gray, white, black, or a color. Before I start spraying, I always make sure that I'm relaxed, prepared, my environment's prepared, and the panel's prepared. I also make sure the gun is set up. I am spraying using a pyramid method, meaning my first coat extends the furthest, and each coat is within that one. I am also making sure that while I spray, I'm watching my gun speed, my distance, and my overlap. After my first coat, I wait for it to flash, and once all the solvent is flashed off and it's dull, then I can apply my next coat within that first coat, building up that pyramid. Again, watching the gun speed, distance, and overlap, I'm applying a very similar coat to the first one. I'm watching that overlap, especially making sure I'm between that 50 and 75% overlap range. And then after a proper flash time again, I come back and do a third coat. Flash times can vary from about 5 to 15 minutes, depending on environmental conditions, solvent selection, etc. After my last coat is dry, then my panel should look like this, and this may take overnight to dry. We can see the pyramid in there, each of the layers that have been built up, and that's to prevent overspray from building on the edges. Some other important considerations are how much room has been left in the panel for blending the base coat color for refinishing. And although it may seem like I have extended it quite far, I know with this color I do have enough room. And I also know once it's prepared, which you'll see later, there'll actually be even more room for blending. I've made sure to keep the primer away from any of the hard tape edges on the panel, as those could potentially show through later on, even if they do send out. After preparing the primer for top coat, there was a small burn through. I am choosing to apply ultraviolet primer, UV primer. In this case, it's being applied through an aerosol can. It can also be applied with a paint gun. The UV primer is applied to the panel, and then after each coat, it gets about 5 to 10 seconds of a UV light application to start the curing process. And then this is repeated for approximately 2 to 3 coats. And then it requires the ultraviolet light over top of it for about a minute or so to fully cure the ultraviolet primer, which can then be prepared like surfacer for the top coat. In a color like this, which may be sensitive, a concern could be that the UV primer is a different color, which could affect the top coat. I know in this application I will be fine with this color. UV primer is also a 2-component top coat, as it is cured by the ultraviolet light and is therefore a thermoset product. This is the cured UV primer, ready to be prepared. And then here we can see the completed prepared product, with the ultraviolet primer on there. Keep in mind that UV primer is somewhat translucent, so you will be able to see through it. And then we see the completed product ready for top coat. Thank you for watching this video.